You're listening to The Inspire Me Show with hostess Layla Ashley, hypnotherapist, life coach, author, and speaker. The Inspire Me Show is dedicated to bringing passion and inspiration into your life and your relationships. While side effects of listening to this show may include greater feelings of love, joy, and creative inspiration, please note that this show is meant to entertain and inform and is not a replacement for professional help. Learn more at www.laylaashley.com. And now, right here on KPFK, in the spirit of love, empowerment, and freedom, your hostess, Layla Ashley.
Welcome to part 2 of the interview with Dr. Carl Totton. Professor Carl Totton is the founder of the Taoist Institute. He has studied the Chinese healing, spiritual, and martial arts for over 45 years and is licensed as a clinical and educational psychologist. He is certified as both a Reiki master and Qigong and martial arts Grandmaster. He teaches classes in all of the traditional Chinese internal and external martial arts, Qigong, Taoist meditation, Tui Na, the ancient Chinese method of acupressure, massage, and medical Qigong. Dr. Totton has taught at 5 colleges and universities, including 2 schools of traditional Oriental medicine. He is listed in the U.S. Martial Arts Hall of Fame and over 20 volumes of Who's Who biographies. Professor Totton has taught many of the most prominent members of the film, music, and entertainment industries, including A-list celebrities, executives, and athletes. Dr. Totton is the founder of the Core System, which is trademarked, a new method of integrating the ancient roots of the traditional healing, spiritual, and martial arts, and transforming them for contemporary applications.
And we all need to wake up. Mm-hmm. Because if we wake up, we're going to see the incredible potential that every human being has, and the incredible, wonderful gift of life on this earth. And when everybody is working at a common purpose to lift that to its highest level of functionality, we will not recognize life on this planet any longer.
That'll be a great day.
Yes, and we can do it.
And we can do it.
We can do it.
We're doing it right now.
We're doing it right now.
So we're creating this show, and it's going to spread the word. So and the energy.
We have to create. If you want to live in a paradise, create it.
Yeah.
Create it. Don't wait for someone else to do it. There isn't anyone else. There's only us.
Mm-hmm. It's just stepping right into it, right?
Yeah, we have to step up to the plate.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, empty mind. How would you suggest people cultivate a receptive way of being and integrating this stuff in their lives and connecting with the flow of nature and that kind of thing, and keep up with their busy city lives, day-to-day demands? Because in our culture, people are, forever asking this. So,
well, number one, I recognize it's not necessarily easy, but it's easier than people think. See, a lot of people think that, well, do I have to go to India or Tibet or someplace and go live in a mountaintop?
Join a monastery?
No, you don't have to do that, because the temple is within. We are the temple. We are a mobile temple, every human being. Right? Because the divine spark is in every human. It lies deep in the human heart. And so all we really have to do is to pay attention to that. Remember I said the E leads the Chi. The consciousness leads what then becomes reality. Mm-hmm. Now, if we never take any time and just slow down and turn inward, remember life is an inside job, then you'll miss it. We definitely will miss it. We'll get so caught up in the busyness of the day that we will lose ourselves. Mm-hmm. So that's why I have this 100-day gong, because if a person is not committed to work on themselves, there's nothing I can do. Mm-hmm. I can't wave a magic wand and help someone become something other than what they want to become.
Yeah.
But if they say, look, what I've been doing hasn't been working, teach me, help me, then since I spent over 50 years studying everything I possibly could to learn how to help people, I will help you. Mm-hmm. I will help you. And I will select the tools that together we feel will give you the most benefit. And then you practice. Remember, you're a scientist, you're running experiments, and you practice and you see what works for you. But part of it is definitely being mindful. And mindful meditation involves not emptying your mind, because no one can do that. It's not, just try. I dare you. It's not going to work. I can tell you that right now. And so some people think that, I'm not doing it right if I'm having any thoughts. My mind is not empty. Well, it's not possible for you to do that. So just push that aside for a moment. And instead, what you can do is look at your thoughts and look at the images in your mind and look at the memories that come up from your past and things that you might be thinking about in the future even. You can do that, I bet. I bet you can just look at that. Now, what part of our consciousness is looking at the mind? In other words, the mind now is looking at itself. See, so now we're cultivating the ability to come from another place, from a place of really of more stillness and quiet, to look at this so-called monkey mind that's chattering like a container, a barrel of monkeys all the time.
Right.
And then we want to also take a look at our emotions. We're very emotional beings here on planet Earth, as you may have noticed.
I noticed. I did.
And then we want to look at our physical body, right? Our heart is beating, blood is pumping, all kinds of neurochemistry things are going on. We have brain waves, So we want to be able to look at the consciousness, look at the mind, look at the emotions, look at the body, look at the imagery from this other position.
Metaconsciousness or
Metaconsciousness, yes. Which encompasses really the totality of all of that. Because when we're looking at our mind and our emotions and our body, we are not dominated by the mind and the emotions and the body's needs and desires any longer.
That's an internal boundary right there.
Yes.
Right?
And that gives us freedom, which to me is the ultimate attainment. Everybody wants to be free. But if you're a slave to anyone, or even to your own self, to your own mind, to your own emotions, and there are a lot of people who are slaves to their own ways of thinking, right? The habits they've developed, the emotional habits they've developed, the communication patterns they've developed.
They've bought into them, basically.
It's all they know.
Yeah.
And so that now defines their reality. And that's so limiting. And so by stepping back and taking a look at it, you now reclaim your ability to operate at a level of peak performance, something that you never even dreamed was possible because you were so caught up in day-to-day things and day-to-day thinking and day-to-day feeling about
Now, how
things.
does this concept relate to flow? Because at first glance, they almost seem opposite. Because flow, you have to kind of join with yourself and forget about consciousness.
Remember, I talked about yin and yang? They work together, right? See,
Yeah.
we always want to go to one end or the other.
Yeah. That's true.
It's our tendency. Remember I said we're all bipolar?
That's true.
So we want to do that. We want to
Yeah.
force a dichotomy. We always want to do that, when actually we need all of it. So as you observe yourself and kind of pull back a little bit, remember I said you gain something too. You actually gain the capacity to operate outside of the box. Your imagination and creativity is stimulated radically, and then you get so excited by this new potential that you've opened up that you then get into the flow of that, and you get into this creative flow that can go on for hour after hour after hour. So in other words, by letting go, you actually received more. Isn't that beautiful?
It's very beautiful. I love it.
But I said both have to work together.
Yeah.
It's not one or the other.
Yeah, it's that dance again.
Yeah, it's not but, it's and. It's and.
I love it.
And speaking about and, a lot of people, as you I'm sure have noticed, walk around the world basically saying some form of no to themselves. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, this is not going to work out. Oh, I'm not good enough. No, all day long. You look at parents interacting with their children, teachers talking to children. They spend a lot of time essentially saying no.
True.
Okay. So I tell everybody, first thing in the morning, look at yourself in the mirror and say yes, 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 and give yourself permission to go beyond the usual boundaries of imagination and functioning where we have limited ourselves and our human potential. Because if you go through life saying yes to yourself, feeling good about who you are, in a positive state mentally and emotionally and spiritually and psychically and energetically, you'll be so much more fulfilled, so much more happy. And we're not on this planet to suffer. Right. We're not here to suffer. Suffering comes from attachment to these rigid extremes. That is what creates the suffering.
Yeah.
And thinking that something has to last forever. Nothing lasts forever. You know, the ancient Taoists said, no, the only constant in life is change. Things are constantly changing every second. You can't stop it. All we can do is do what? Go with the flow. Right? It's like surfing the wave. Right? You can go with the flow. Just try to fight the waves in the ocean. It's not going to work. You're going to drown.
Yeah, it's true.
And
again, it's a dance because at the same time we're going with the flow, we're influencing our own reality.
Yes.
We're bringing something of ourselves into it.
Yes.
So it's that dance again.
You can help set the course, right? By making little course corrections. Right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people's capacity to make those internal alignments and course corrections has become impaired. And that's a lot of what I do as a spiritual healer, as a shamanic healer, and as a psychologist, is to make those just minor adjustments that then allow people to actually reach their goals. Because often it's just a little thing that's off kilter.
Right.
But because of their habits, they've been thinking and functioning in a certain way for, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever.
Yeah.
And haven't had the great fortune that I've had to have all these amazing teachers. They don't necessarily know how to change.
Right. So you give people internal driving lessons,
yes.
right? I love it. That's great.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about some of your healing methods. You work a lot on consciousness shifting and altering states of consciousness, things like that. So let's get into that. Let's start with Ho'oponopono.
No, that's
right?
a big word. That's a mouthful.
That's a big word, and I said it. I practiced it before the interview.
Ho'oponopono.
The Hawaiian practice of forgiveness.
Yes, it really means to kind of like to reset, to kind of it's like making a course correction, really. There was an ancient practice of Ho'oponopono where a kahuna, like a wise person, kind of like a shaman, would get together with a whole family. Grandparents, parents, cousins, aunts, uncles, kids, the whole extended family would have to get together and everybody could say their piece, any grievances that they had, and no one could judge them. You had to let them speak and unconditionally just accept what they said. And then at the end of that process, through some exercises, the healer, if you will, would help the people forgive, let go. Forgive and let go. Then everybody would kind of hug each other, and whatever the issue was, it's done. You couldn't speak of it again. Let it go. And then they have a big meal, and everybody go about their business. Nowadays, that's not practical. You're not going to get together everybody. And so a Hawaiian healer, kind of a shaman, years ago, she figured out how to do this individually. Again, life is this inside job, and we have an inside family inside of our heads, all of us. We have an inner child in there that's really holding on to a lot of the wounds, the data, the faulty information from the past. Yeah. And so her method became a way of internal forgiveness, internal letting go, internal caring for the self that then over time would reduce the level of imbalance and impairment to the point where the higher self, and we all have a higher self, could then become functional again. Because a lot of people are disconnected from their higher self. They're so caught up in their day-to-day activities and in their own past, attachments and malalignments that have limited their capacity. And so once you get to the point where you can let go of enough of that, your higher self, which is in constant contact with divinity, now opens up to full functioning, and you just download pure inspiration from divinity, and you're done.
Right.
You're good to go at that point.
Right.
And so this is an easy way where every day all we have to do is kind of look inside and say to ourselves, thank you. Again, we're talking to our inner self. I love you. right? Total acceptance, because nothing is going to go away because you don't like it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But if you accept it, you can begin healing it. And when you heal, then other opportunities inside of you open up. Then you can relate to others in a different way. And then through cooperation, you can create a new world, a new life for yourself, as well as for other people. And so that's something that I try to teach really everybody, is how to do this inner work on themselves.
And it's thank you, I love you. And
thank you, I love you. Those are the most important words to say to oneself every day. Talking to your own inner self. Because our inner self has been around since before the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's holding a lot of data, a lot of misinterpretations, and a lot of wounds.
Now, what about saying this for someone else?
They would say that life, again, is an inside job. And if you haven't done it to yourself, it's not going to be authentic and helpful to anyone else. Mm-hmm. Once you've done it to yourself, then remember, we're all interconnected too. So as we get better, guess what? Kind of automatically, the people in our immediate sphere, they may almost through magic start to get better too.
Yeah.
So it creates space for other people to begin their healing as well. But we know that the only person we can really heal, and it has to start with ourselves. 100% responsibility, because the average person spends a lot of their day, if things aren't going right, blaming something, someone else. It's them. It's the government. It's the media. They point everywhere except themselves. And remember that beautiful saying from my Ho'oponopono teacher, have you noticed that whenever there's a problem, you're always there?
Yes, strange coincidence.
Which means that it's not there to torment us. It's there to give us another chance to fix it. It's a learning opportunity. And if we could always look at everything that happens as a learning opportunity, then we don't have problems any longer that cannot be solved.
Right.
But if you're waiting for someone else to do it, you're going to wait a long time.
So it's really forgiveness of the self. You wouldn't recommend someone doing it to forgive someone else.
It's forgiveness. But if you forgive yourself, remember, other people are more like us than different. You're going to find the space inside of yourself to understand and let go of your antipathy towards them much more easily than if you don't do this inner work.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't done the inner work, if you don't really accept yourself and your own flaws, you think you're going to accept anyone else's? No.
Right. So you could do that work for forgiving someone else, but if you haven't done the inner work, it's just going to come kind of remanifest.
Right. It's not going to work, and it's going to come back.
Yeah.
It's going to come back.
Yeah.
But if everybody learns how to do this inner work, then the outer work becomes much more readily accessible. Much more.
Yeah, that's great.
So it's like, where do you want to work? Do you want to try to work out there, trying to get other people to do things? And that doesn't typically work very well. And after a while, again, there's blowback, there's pushback. Because people don't like to be told what to do.
Right. That's true. That's true. Well, and that brings up an interesting point, because even sometimes our own inner self doesn't like to be, quote, told what to do by ourselves. How would you suggest someone work with that kind of inner conflict?
Remember I said that the word that we say to ourselves inside is thank you, I love you, right? See, so as we learn to accept ourselves, warts and all, good and bad, not to make it go away, but through self-acceptance, gaining the internal freedom to explore other options that might be more functional. Where I talked about the balance, that is one side kind of increases, the more functional, happy, productive, creative, loving, compassionate, caring side, as that goes up, then the things that are diametrically opposed to that, automatically there's not as much space and energy for them any longer. Right. And they start to go down without you having to even work on it that much directly.
Right, because you've taken care of that core, there's that word again, issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, and that's the whole approach of what's known now as positive psychology. The old way of approaching psychology was very medicalized, right? And psychiatry today is almost completely medicalized. They primarily give medication. But if you see these parts of yourself that are out of balance as pathology, as something to be killed and destroyed, then remember, this is part of you. You're trying to kill, destroy part of yourself. You know? And that part of yourself, as you mentioned earlier, that probably developed as a defensive reaction to things that happen. In other words, that was a survival mechanism. And we don't want to just kill that.
Right.
Just get rid of that. We want to soften it so that it comes out in appropriate doses and at appropriate times. Because, everything in reality is there for a reason or it wouldn't be there.
Right.
Right. It's just that if it goes to the extreme and is used inappropriately in the wrong way at the wrong time, in the wrong situations, then it becomes a problem. Mm-hmm. But if we, on the other hand, expand opportunities on the other side, to be more creative and more open and more loving and have better creative problem solving and better able to access our own authentic potential as a human being, if that expands, these other areas are going to lose their mojo. They're going to lose their steam.
Yeah.
They're going to have the same grip over us that they had when they were the only option.
Right, because we're the ones empowering them or not.
Yes.
Right.
And remember, I said my job is to restore your freedom.
Absolutely.
And you want to be free from anyone else and certainly from your own old habits.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you don't want to be under your own spell either.
No. And a lot of people are basically have hypnotized themselves. They're under their own spell.
I know. Well, there's where we come in handy, using our hypnotherapy techniques.
That's right. I know hypnotherapy too.
Yes.
But of course, what I teach people is self-hypnosis so they can learn how to expand their own potential. What hypnosis really is becoming more suggestible to the input of your own consciousness. Mm-hmm. Right. And it can also be used for things like pain control and things like that, because, again, that's just attention or consciousness as well.
Right.
I've seen people get scalding burns on their hand, or what would have been scalding burns, but because they knew self-hypnosis, they were able to instantly just say, ice cold. And they did not blister, they felt no pain, it just went away.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. Talk about the mind leading the body. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Because you haven't changed the chemical reaction.
No.
But you've changed it on another level.
Yeah. And so a lot of these things are almost mysterious. We don't even understand how some of these things work.
Yeah.
But they do work.
And so you work with healing the light body as well. Can you just briefly discuss that?
Yeah, one of the things I learned, certainly from my Chinese teachers, they talked about the energetic body, internally, and also around the human body is an energetic field as well. Yeah. And the shamans, from pretty much all schools, whether it's Native American or Peruvian or Hawaiian or whoever, they all work with the light body, with the energetic body. And they understand that the light body around many people is inactive. It's kind of dysfunctional. It's kind of lost, it's kind of lost some of its juice. And so by doing Qigong and other type of yogic or breathing practices, it gets strengthened. And the light body is in contact with everything else that's out there around you. And so if there's a lot of negativity and imbalance out there, which obviously there is, it can stick to your own energetic field and then affect you. Mm-hmm. Because it's said that the light body, the aura, if you will, this energy field around the body is attached to the physical body at the chakra points. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so that's how it can affect our internal organic functioning of our organs. Yeah. And then, of course, all that also affects our emotional functioning and how we think and so on and relate. And so healing is always has to be holistic. Remember, we were talking about earlier mental, emotional, physical, but also energetic. And so there are ways to learn how to feel this energy body around you, how to strengthen it, make sure there's no rips or holes in it, and also how to cleanse it, because it's kind of like a magnet too, and it attracts what's around it. Right. And so we want it to be strong and intact so that it doesn't get overwhelmed by other people's energy and certainly by negative energies. Mm-hmm. So that's what light body healing is. Reiki and a lot of the other things I've learned really work on strengthening the energy field and then kind of literally rooting out any imbalances, impurities, imperfections in it so that you restore the person to wholeness.
Now, do you find that it's easy for people to gain a psychic or intuitive ability and the ability to kind of feel these things as they practice? Or is it? Because I know it's hard for some people, too.
But, it's not that hard. Because remember, we are energy. And so once you realize that and turn your attention to experiencing it, it's right there. It's like literally at your fingertips, quite literally. Yeah. And everybody who puts their hands together and just thinks about it a little bit, they can feel it immediately.
I remember doing that in your class.
Yeah. So you're doing it right now.
I'm doing it.
You can feel the energy ball.
I can.
Yeah.
And it becomes more dense as you bring your hands closer.
Yes, yes. And a lot of the energy work, actually, you can feel it even across the room, you know? And because, remember, energy is all interconnected throughout the world, throughout the universe. And remember, the E leads the Chi, right? The intention can actually lead the energy. And see, and this is my hope for the world, is that if enough people understand how we're all interconnected through this energetic field, and it's affected by our consciousness, and then through these meditation practices, we can begin to cleanse our consciousness, right? Thank you, I love you, and heal the inner child, if you will, the old ancient patterns of dysfunction. And then release this inspiration, which comes from the Tao, the universe, divinity, wherever, this mysterious place, from the spirit, really. Then I think that the world will begin to move towards what I'm calling for, a new renaissance, where everybody begins to wake up to their fullest and highest potential. Yeah. That's my dream for the world.
Yes, it's a wonderful vision and dream.
We can do it.
And we can do it. We are doing it.
Yeah, and only we can do it. Each person has to commit themselves to becoming their best that they can be.
Yeah, it starts with one individual. It starts with each person.
Yes. First you help yourself, then you help the people.
Right. Exactly.
Right out of my teacher's mouth, day one.
Right. It's like a glass of liquid, it overflows onto, once you're filled up enough, you can overflow onto the world in a positive way. So.
Yes. And it affects health. It affects longevity. And ultimately, when energy ultimately cannot be created or destroyed, right? It's just there. And, we go, again, just like the cycles of the year, we're born, we grow up, we age, and then we return to the source, right? Death, right? But the spirit, being pure energy, it cannot die. And if we have managed to somehow join with our spirit so that we're conscious and aware of that, then all sorts of amazing potentials open up. Yeah. And that's when you have people who have clear memories of even past lives, even future lives. The potential becomes amazing for what a human being can actually do. There are no limits ultimately at that level. There's physical limits, but when you get into this realm of soul and spirit, there are no limits.
Now, what might you suggest for people to strengthen their basic memory as well as their more expanded memory in life?
We have to slow down. We're so busy. Yeah. So again, that's that gong, that 100-day of activities. And part of it is slowing down, stopping, taking a look at yourself, and starting to just notice what comes up. And then things from your past and present and maybe even future will come up and will become part of your field of consciousness. But if all you're doing is thinking about where do I have to go next? What do I have to buy next? Can I pay my bills and pay my taxes and do this? If that's the only thing going through your mind, take care of the kids. Then there's no space for you. You have to give. See, the gift that everybody should give themselves is the gift of space and time. The space to just sit and be still, and the time to get to know yourself at the deepest, most intimate levels.
Nice.
That's the gift.
And maybe you want to comment on New Year's.
Yes. New Year's. Chinese New Year will be later in the year, actually.
Right.
They're on the lunar calendar, and it actually is a movable date from around the end of January to the beginning of March. It floats back and forth. And in the Chinese New Year, what they like to do is, before Chinese New Year, everything that needs to be done, debts paid, house cleaned, loose ends kind of taken care of. They like to take care of all of that so that you can let go of that and enter fresh into the new year. And so I think that if we did this gong, learn how to spend time with ourselves, forgive ourselves, thank you, I love you, right? Give yourself permission to become this unique, incredible, inspiring, developing, growing, creative being. If we can release that and get into the flow of that, what better gift could you give yourself, your family, your community, and this world?
That's wonderful. Beautiful.
What better gift?
There is no better gift. That sounds like everything. Yeah.
The gift of you shared with the world. It's the best that we have to offer. And what we give out comes back. Mm-hmm. What you give, you receive.
Right.
You can't just hold on to it. Then it doesn't come back.
Right. And we can't hold on to expectation as we give either, because that's the wrong setup, the wrong attitude.
We have to just let it go.
Yeah, completely.
And then, like an echo, it just comes back.
Right.
Yeah. We don't have to do anything. It'll just come back by itself.
Yeah.
Because that's just the natural flow of life. You talk about flow. See, that's part of the flow. Mm-hmm. Right? As we give, it comes back. Sound, echo. It's natural.
Yeah.
It's natural.
So that's part of nature.
Yes, it is part of nature. And the Tao is all about learning how to live in harmony with nature. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about.
It is. Wonderful. Okay, so another method of healing you use is remote viewing. Can you describe kind of how you incorporate this in your work?
Remote viewing has an interesting history, actually. Mm-hmm. It actually was a research project started at SRI, Stanford Research Institute, up in Northern California, actually originally funded by the federal government, the CIA, of all people. During the Cold War, the U.S. military and intelligence agencies heard that the Soviet Union was studying parapsychology and psychics, and that maybe they were actually using some of those psychics to spy psychically on the U.S.'s deepest secrets, military secrets. Mm-hmm. And they're going, what? Is this even possible? And so they funded some scientists, physicists actually, at SRI up in Northern California to run experiments to see, is it possible for one human being to send their mind around the world and know what is going on there? Mm-hmm. And guess what they found out? Yes,
it is.
It's possible. And so they did some experiments for several years, seeing how this could develop. Could this be taught? Could you teach? Did you have to get just natural psychics? There's always people who psychically just seem to have the gift, the power, if you will, to know things. They're like clairvoyant or whatever.
You just tap in.
And just tap into that. And so they did get some people like that. But over time, they developed a protocol for teaching others how to do that. So then it became not just investigational and scientific, it became operational. And the part of the project moved to Fort Meade in Maryland, which is where the NSA is and military intelligence is, and they actually trained several military intelligence officers in this new skill. And I've seen some of the results of their sessions. It's remarkable. Because remember, as you may not know, the remote viewer, the person who's trying to take their consciousness and move it out remotely at distance in time and space in the world, does not know what they're actually looking at. The target is hidden from them. It's maybe written in an envelope somewhere. So let's say the target is a secret underground base in another country somewhere. They don't know that's what the target is. So their consciousness has to access that, again, by following this structured protocol, and learn how to go outside the bounds of time and space and find this, and then begin to draw pictures and describe it and so on.
Right.
So this was obviously useful for military intelligence, but they found that it was also useful for a lot of other things. You could go back into history and look at anything that had ever happened, because its kind of energetic signature was still there, and describe things that happened hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. You could maybe even go in the future and see what was going to happen. The future is a little bit more amorphous because it's not fully set yet. You can go a little bit into the future and be more certain. Mm-hmm. You can look at the human body. Say someone has a mysterious condition. Remote viewers can go in there and actually see what's really going on in the body, say for healing. So it's called medical remote viewing.
Oh, that's amazing.
People have used it to find buried treasure, missing persons. It's almost unlimited. I often ask people who want to learn about remote viewing, what do you want to know about the world? We can probably find a remote viewing application to learn about whatever you're curious about. Mm-hmm. And remember, human beings are curious. We want to know about all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And so this is something that came from a very strange background, the CIA and military intelligence, but that now is in the civilian hands, and we can use it any way we want to really get information that you probably can't get any other way, because the information is remote in terms of time or distance.
And you just get small hints in an envelope.
Well, the envelope, inside the envelope, but hidden from the viewer, is what it is you're trying to find information about. Mm-hmm. But you don't know that. So your psyche has to go there. See, because if I told you, I'm going to have you remote view the assassination of John Kennedy. Well, now, your imagination is going to be playing overtime. All the books you've read, all the movies you've seen, all the theories you've heard, you're going to be thinking about that. But if you have no idea what's in that envelope, and yet you suddenly begin describing a motorcade and an important man sitting in the car and things happening to that person. See, now I believe that you truly have remotely viewed this event.
Exactly.
See, so there's some checks and balances built in.
That way you're not.
To keep you honest.
Yeah, exactly. And you're not seeing it through your own filters.
Exactly.
And conditioning.
And that's the hardest thing for remote viewers to learn how to do, is to get out of their own way. When they do scientific remote viewing, the tasker, the person who's kind of maybe helping with the session, also doesn't know what the target is, as well as the remote viewer. So it's double blind. Mm-hmm. And yet we still get incredible results. It's truly one of the most remarkable activities that the human mind has demonstrated it's capable of doing. In hundreds, if not thousands, of like double-blind experiments. Mm-hmm. And just think, the average person has no idea they have this capability. Isn't that remarkable?
It is. It's very remarkable. And how would you say someone could use it just on a easy kind of day-to-day basis to experiment with it?
Well, I think that all of us need to be able to develop our intuition a little bit better. Because we often have, all day long, we have choices. Should I go here? Should I go there? Should I do this? Should I do that? Just think if by freeing up your consciousness a little bit, you could pick the better choice, the better decision. Mm-hmm. Because some decisions will become disastrous and some will lead to much better outcomes, right?
Right.
For example, there have been times, at least a couple of times in my life, where I was getting ready to go to a store and shop for groceries or whatever. And just as I was heading for my car, something told me, don't go there. And in both cases, the stores were being robbed at the very moment by people with guns that I would have been there.
Really?
For example.
Wow.
That's just a simple example.
Oh, okay. I thought that really happened.
No, it did. Well, but I avoided it because I got the remotely viewed information to not go there at that moment.
Right.
And so it has very practical uses too, like in keeping you alive maybe.
Yeah, that could be practical. That could be useful. That's great.
It's just another tool of consciousness that I've learned that I find really fascinating.
Yeah.
Really
That's
interesting.
Extremely fascinating. And thanks for discussing it a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks for being on the show. Now, you just released an ebook on Amazon.
Yes.
And you have some podcasts. And so why don't you just say a bit about your current involvements and what you have to offer? Yeah,
a couple of things that I just recently did. In fact, just this week, my ebook came out. It's called The Book on Internal Stress Release. The Book on Internal Stress Release. It's available on Amazon. And I and two co-authors were all long-term internal martial artists. We really took a lot of the information that we've learned about consciousness, about meditation, about nutrition, diet, self-healing, and applied it to stress release, because a big killer in our current modern frenzied lifestyle is stress.
Yeah.
And so if we can learn to let go of that, we're all going to be a lot healthier and have longer, happier, more nurturing lives. And so that's what that book is all about. Right now it's out as an ebook, and after the first of the year, it will also be in paperback and hard copy as well.
Great.
I also have done a series of 12 podcasts on Taoism. It's called What's This Tao All About?
I love it.
Tao spelled with a T, T-A-O. What's this Tao all about? And if you go to iTunes, you can actually subscribe to it for free and have access to all 12 of them. Great. There's also a dedicated website called whatsthisdao.com that you can go to and, again, have access to all 12 of them for free. And so I have it in my iTunes on my smartphone, so I can just go around and listen to it whenever I want. When I'm driving in the car, I can listen to my podcast, right? And arrive in a better state of mind.
Right.
Learning all about the Tao and balance and yin and yang and harmony and letting go and the Tao Te Ching, kind of, the great book of the Tao, that I talk about in each one of the episodes.
Yeah. Wonderful. And your main website is TaoistInstitute.com, right?
Yes, TaoistInstitute.com. That's for my school. I also have drcarltotton.com. That's for my psychology practice. And I teach a spiritual class called Awakening the Illuminated Heart. It's a 4-day class in spirituality. And I have a website, www.heartoftao.com. heartoftao.com. for information about the scheduling of that class.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining me today on
Thank
the
you for
Inspire Me
having
Show,
me.
Carl. It's been wonderful to have your very vital and peaceful presence on the show and all of your wisdom. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for listening to the Inspire Me Show with hostess Layla Ashley, hypnotherapist, life coach, author, and speaker. Find out more about Layla's services and products at laylaashley.com. The Inspire Me Show is dedicated to bringing passion and inspiration into your life and your relationships. Join Layla on her next episode of this regular program here on KPFK. Until then, live in the spirit of inspiration.